over now, right? You just take it over.
We don't know what we guys did either.
So I was telling Eileen, between the two of us, we got one full functioning brain. So we can get through this.
And then you two guys add to it, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the snow?
I'm staying. I gotta collect samples.
Yeah, she's staying.
I gotta collect samples. Well, I guess we could all stay in our room. I got a king size bed.
You're
all of us
supposed to
in
like
there.
that.
Put us all in
Poor
there.
Tim.
Oh, we'll drop them off later.
I'll drop him off later. Don't worry about it. Maybe right after this session, I'll run you out.
Go to other ones. It's right outside the door.
What's that?
I wanted to know where the famous snack bar was.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll have to talk about that.
I should have included that in the concept map. Closest door. Did you take the snack bar maps out?
Yeah, they're there.
Oh, you left them out.
Yeah, they're at the end.
I put in
They're at the end.
I put in how to most efficiently get to the snack bar.
Yeah, they're at the end.
Yeah. That's photosynthesis, yeah. I don't know, it was one of those two. It's up there.
Okay.
We have the snack bar competing with us.
Is it, oh, it's not gonna be that noisy.
No, I'm just saying that's where everyone is.
That's where everybody is. Oh, I see. After lunch? Let's just be, let's just.
Let's be for real.
I think it's a coffee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just be for real. It's that snack bar. It's infamous, that snack bar. Yeah. I am. Anytime you are.
Yeah, okay.
I think we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for our after lunch session for a presentation with Karen Cackley, instructor of biology, Eileen Grodziak, who is with Media Commons. Media Commons? Yes. And we're presenting with them today will be two undergraduate students, Paolo Flauta and Dylan Grube. And they're presenting today on Making Connections, LucidChart and Collaborative Technology Classroom equals Student Success. So please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you. Thank you. As was mentioned, I am an instructor of biology. I'm at the Penn State Lehigh Valley campus. And I have, which I know up at University Park is considered a small class of 60 students. And so I have frequently a difficult time in getting big concepts across to students. So the problem was that in this introductory biology course, students are presented with many different facts. In fact, I'd heard somewhere, and I wish I'd written down where it was, that students in their first year of biology learn more new vocabulary than someone in their first year of Spanish. So we've got lots of facts and lots of figures that they need to learn, and it's very complex. And the problem that I have is that many of these students, it seems, focus on rote memorization. And it was, we just came from lunch. And Eileen and I were sitting and staring at each other. This is just what we want, this guy could give the talk this afternoon. So we're trying to figure out ways of making connections. Instead of this just simply memorizing it, tell me what I need to know to pass the test, give me a study guide, let me go, and then act like they're going to forget it forever from then on. And this memorization is not going to prepare them for future coursework or any of their studies. So we felt that they really needed a firm understanding of concepts and connections between this information. So one approach that we took was to use concept mind mapping, and our campus has a new collaborative classroom. And another key piece in this whole thing was the fact that at our campus, we instituted a course that I found out that's offered at University Park called Biology 3, which is peer teaching in biology. And in fact, the first student who taught it is Vinod Jaretnam, who's in the front row here. And he handed the mantle off to Paolo Flauta and Dylan Grube. So these are the people that actually make it all happen. I just kind of sit there as the instructor of the course, and these guys do the work. That's the great model. So that's, I guess, is the lesson to take home. Find good undergraduates and then sit back. Okay. Okay. So, concept mapping. I'll have to admit, I'm trained as a biologist, and through my collaboration with Eileen and Media Commons, she taught me about this whole thing about concept mapping, which I didn't understand how it worked and what it was to do. And she said, well, it's a tool to build knowledge. And I'm like, oh, okay. I think I get that. And then she says, okay, Karen, I'll explain it to you in a way that even you can understand it. She says, imagine that you've lost your car keys and you want to find them. What do? And then, well, I think back to the last place I had them. She says, exactly. And then what do? Well, you trace your steps. Okay, I came in the house, I had the keys in my hand, and what did I do next? Well, I went in the kitchen and I put everything down. And then from there, I went to the next place. And then when she started to explain it to me in that kind of a format, I could understand what she meant. And she said that basically what this does is, according to these theorists that do education work, is that it's a way to build knowledge by connecting separate pieces of new knowledge to your old knowledge. And so if what we were trying to do is get the students to think about how the concepts connect to one another. And one of the great things is we can see when they do concept mappings, which I didn't know until I saw the first student concept map. I can look at that map and I can see whether that student gets it or not. So Eileen told me about this concept mapping, so we looked it up, and when you know it, the guy who published the first article is a biologist. So it's like, okay, this is meant to be. I have to go for this. And it's this tool of helping to understand these concepts, and she has to help me with this stuff. This is not my purview here. Reveals the semantic structure of knowledge, not just a series of facts to memorize. So how does it integrate together? How does it work together to build a larger concept? She taught me about this word schema. I'm winging this right now, I'll let you know. Okay. That's the framework in which the pieces of information are connected. Am I doing it right? In the brain. Okay. I'm not a psychologist either. And it's shown that experts in the field have more highly developed schema in which they categorize this information. And what I see at these benefits of concept maps is it isn't just linear. Okay, this is a multi-format that they can use. They think at a higher level just to get this information together and get it onto paper. They have to see these individual concepts. How can I put them together? How can I construct this into some sort of a map? How does this information relate one piece to another? And I can see how the students are thinking by looking at those maps, or these guys can see how they're thinking by looking at the maps. And it's easy to manipulate those maps to make changes. When the students see a change in the information where they had a misunderstanding, they can rearrange these maps. So how we got started on this whole thing is we have a new master's in education sitting up here. And as part of her research, she needed a big class, and that tends to be me at our university. And I actually started out with a non-majors biology class. And they were assigned the task of making a concept mind map for cell division. And we used, at that time, a software that's called Glyphy. And they were given a concept map, the task to build a concept map, and then to turn that in. And I thought that would be the end of it. And Eileen's like, oh no, we have to give them a sample that they can compare theirs with. And I'm like, well, why would we do that? I mean, they've already built it, so again, she's taking me through this step by step. And they had the chance to revise their maps and resubmit them. And this is a map that Eileen made so this is the kind of thing that we showed the students for cell division. So I know it's difficult to see, but this was a sample map, and it shows all the different stages, and you can see the interrelatedness, and she could use different shapes and different colors of the map. and there's arrows that show these connections from one concept to the next. And that's what they had to compare theirs with. Well, I got a first student map, and these are some before and afters. And on the top left, what we're seeing is mitosis and meiosis, which are two different kinds of cell division for different purposes. And you can see that in that top left photo, drawing there, that student saw no connection between those two processes. They just went step by step, mitosis, step by step, meiosis. No connection between them. Didn't seem to see any connection at all. Now, after looking at the map that Eileen had, we end up with this after map where we can start to see, oh, okay, well, I can see this is a similar process, and this one connects to that one, and it's just a more detailed. But when I looked at that map on the top left, I said, they don't get it. They don't get it at all. Similar situation here. The before map on the top left, mitosis on one side, meiosis on the other. No connection between the concepts at all. Look at their after map. All these different connections that they're making of pulling this information together, the details, how it relates to one another. And this is just one more example showing that they didn't necessarily have to use a whole lot of color, but we have three separate entities on the top left, not connected to the others at all. Where on the after, we begin to see all of these different connections. They're making these concepts weave together from one to the other. They're building on that knowledge and constructing larger concepts with them. So Eileen did this study in the non-majors class. We saw the results. I saw it immediately on the exams. I didn't need to wait for her data. I saw it immediately. I saw results on the exam between those students who'd been in the control group that studied on their own, and then those that had been in this group that had to do mind maps. And she tells me that after she ran the statistics, it was even significant, according to the statistical analysis, that if she controlled for prior knowledge, they were given a test before, right? A quiz before and then afterwards, that the concept mapping scored significantly higher on the test. So that's all I needed. It was kind of like one of those drug studies. We're going to stop it. Everyone's going to do it now. So what we did was we incorporated this concept into the majors course. And so I teach Biology 110. It's the introductory course for all biology majors. And they were assigned that they needed to build a concept mind map for the cell cycle, which is mitosis, meiosis, and all the parts that go with it, aerobic cellular respiration, and photosynthesis. And these are examples of some of the maps that we got from majors using Glyphy software. This one is actually cut off. There's a whole nother slide that went off to the other side. But what you can see is that you see these real cycles of components. They see where things happen, how the process relates to each other, where in the cell it's taking place, what are the different steps involved in the process. Here again, relatedness of the process. It's not just individual facts that don't relate to one another. They can see how what is the products that come from the light reactions are now used in the Calvin cycle, and that things are regenerated and they go back. So it's this whole concept of having to see how these facts relate to one another. And this one has a little bit more detail on the individual Calvin cycles. So there was a whole variety of different ways and different colors and different shapes that these students used to construct this knowledge. So our next step is to incorporate concept mapping in additional classes, and we started to incorporate this into another course, Biology 220, as part of the lab activity. So I started taking time from labs to do concept mapping. And we wanted to use Glyphy again, but there's a glitch with Glyphy in that students for free, and this was, I'm all about the money when it comes to the students, it costs money for this kind of stuff. So I didn't want a software program where they had to pay for anything. And Glyphy only allows 5 maps for free. And the other thing was there was no group collaboration. And what I wanted to incorporate into this is making them defend their maps. I wanted them to sit down with other students with the same concept. We saw maps that looked different, and to try to convince the other ones why their map was better than the other students were. And you can't collaborate with Glyphy on your individual maps. You can bring in your computers and you can sit them down and you can print out a PDF, but they couldn't actually collaborate on their individual maps as a group. And that's when we discovered, or Eileen discovered, LucidChart, which has free educational accounts and has it's possible for group collaboration with unlimited numbers of documents. So they can continue to keep using this over and over again. You just have to go in and fill out a form in their education link, and then these students are able to share these charts with one another. And these are some of the kinds of charts that these students are producing in LucidChart. And this one is what? I'm having trouble reading it from up here. I can't see the words on it very clearly. I don't know if it's mitosis.
Factors that limit diseases.
Distribution. This is actually from Bio 220. This is from ecology. So this is looking at why do we find species distributed where they are and what affects their relative abundance from one another. So this is where they were actually putting these concepts together and relating them one to another. Similar situation, this is another one of the maps that they constructed on that same topic. So it's just different grouping, different groups came up with different collaborative maps to explain the same concepts. And here's one that did it without using a whole lot of color. So it doesn't, I mean, they can pick the shapes, they can pick the color, they can pick whatever works out best for them. But the thing that I'm thrilled when I look at this is I see they're getting the connections. They understand how one topic relates to another topic, and that it all builds one piece of information on another. And we actually did a little bit of a survey with the students. Now, Eileen, we put this on Angel, or you put this on Angel? This was a survey that was on Angel, and we were reading through the student comments. And the question that Eileen posted was, explain what you're thinking when you made the connection between these three lectures. And a student, and working with these concept maps, and the student said, I felt a light bulb turn on. And that's pretty powerful to hear from an undergraduate student. I didn't understand this before. It all made sense was another one, that comment that was made. Another one said, realized that making connections makes the understanding of the concepts easier. So they're not seeing these as just random pieces of information for rote memorization anymore. They're seeing how one relates to the other and how it all builds. And one said how well understood the concepts because it was simple for me to connect them together. And then after they compared their maps with other students' maps, they said that they realized that the concepts were more interrelated than they had thought they would be before, and that comparing with the group broadened the connections and added more definitions and concepts into their webs or their maps. And rather than just thinking about three concepts as separate entities, they could see how they were all part of a bigger picture. So this is what we're doing. We're seeing great success at them putting this together. Additional comments, they liked LucidChart and concept map making should be used more. The student who said that is now teaching it. And they said that it helps to physically work with different concepts, so that it's not just reading it, they now have to get it, they have to type it, they have to move it, they have to put it in shapes, they have to move it all around and see how one concept relates to the other. They're working with it as opposed to just being told what the concepts are. And they realize that making connections makes the understanding of the concepts easier. And another one said that it should be used more and would make a great tool for early biology courses. So the next steps, I'm going to let Eileen take over. Our campus was fortunate to have a new collaborative classroom put together. So the next steps was to take this idea of concept mind mapping and putting it into a new classroom that we have and making sure that Biology 3, this peer teaching in biology, was scheduled for that room. I'll sit over here, yes.
Okay, hi. So last year at the TLT conference, the day before the Friday activity was the tour around campus, and one of the spaces that we saw was the Krause Innovation Studio, and there was quite a bit of discussion about how this space was going to be used, and we really don't have much information about how these collaborative spaces work for education and what are the kinds of affordances that it provides us in working with our students. And I really thought about that, and I thought about the fact that we have this beautiful new, let me just see, am I doing it right? No, wrong way, okay. This new collaborative classroom. Now, you're well aware of the steel case units that are in the library, in the new Knowledge Commons, and our campus had gave us a sum of money to be able to work with this room, but not to the extent that we would be able to purchase the steel case cabinet and have a whole classroom of it. So Dean Schaefer, our instructional designer, and the IT department put together the proposal for this room. So coming back, and of course all the discussion that we had done over the previous semesters with regards to the concept map, we felt that this would be perfect affordance for this type of interaction, especially with a web-based tool. So you see, it's very similar to the little steel case units where you have two monitors. The students can connect their computers so that everybody can be working at the same time. One screen, a student can share their screen, but then with the tool that we have for the LucidChart, they can all work together. I'm sorry, I had to convert this, and it didn't do a very good job over the internet.
Do you guys remember the
Just
graph
a little bit of it in action, just a really short little video. This was a small
Not as
class
much
that
as-
day, but they all have their laptops, and she's working. There's actually you can't see it, but the screen behind her that is displaying what she's doing. The other students can see what she's doing as well. Let's just go to the next one. Okay, so why don't you guys talk? We're gonna just get a little bit of their student perspective, about just a couple minutes, okay? And then I'm gonna actually have you go into LucidChart. It's something you can access on. I actually was able to get it up on my iPhone, but it's probably better suited for either the iPad or a desktop. So, do you want to say just a couple of words? I mean, you had experience both as a student doing the concept mapping, and then also as now a student who's helping other students understand. So why don't you come up and talk right in front of here?
You first. Can you do the student part? Because I didn't do it. All right. I was a student that used concept mapping. My name's Dylan Grube. I took part in actually using LucidChart and Glyphy to make these concept mind maps. I found it very helpful from my standpoint. You have all this information, all this vocab, all these terms getting thrown at you, and it's kind of just gets jumbled in your head. You're like, what does this mean? How does this interconnect? It kind of gets confusing. So with the LucidChart and the Glyphy, it kind of gives you that hands-on type of learning. Like you could physically see how everything interconnects using the concept map, and that's what I really liked about it. That really helped me kind of visualize and see the interconnectedness of everything and all the concepts that we were learning about.
In terms of using it as a teaching tool, I tutor as well as teach Bio 3. And what I really find helpful with the concept mapping is they'll come to me in a tutoring session and they'll be like, Paulo, look at my concept map. Can you tell me what's wrong with it? So instead of actually telling them, okay, that should go here, I would go over what I was talking about in class or what was said in lecture for those topics, and I would ask them questions. They'll be like, oh, so this thing actually goes to this. So they physically move the arrow to the right concept, from box to box. They move the arrow. So you can see that they are making the connections. And it makes it easy for me as well, because then I can look at it and I know where to pinpoint, this is where I have to focus. If we were doing it in the collaborative classroom, I can have them working in groups. I can have my concept map or a list of terms on one screen and have them work in groups and look at at their screen. They can all collaborate. They can say, okay, this term goes here, but what having them working in groups would generate a discussion and they would disagree with each other. Eventually, they will come up with the right answer. And by the end of it, I would ask them, okay, please, one of you, can you stand up, explain to the class what you did, what connections you made. And by the end of the whole class that day, they all had a better understanding of it, and they usually did do better, which it's a good feeling to know that what you're doing is actually helping them, and that after that test, they still remember it.
And Paulo, why don't you explain what you're doing now? Because now Paulo has taken using concept maps one step further in his own use with the research that you're doing.
Yeah, I had to make a poster for one of the research that I participated in, and what kept sticking in my head was the amount of times that you have to keep reminding the reader what you're talking about. You have 3 different groups, 3 different conditions, and to have to keep repeating that and repeating it, it takes up a lot of space on a poster. So what I figured I would do was, why don't I make a schematic of it using LucidChart? So instead of in the figure legends having what group was which, I just said, these are the groups, they're called this, and what conditions are they in? And then under those, I would have what data corresponded with which group. So instead of reminding the reader, taking up space in my figure legends to explain, okay, this is this group again, I would have them just refer to the concept map and be like, okay, so this is this. If they ever forget, they have something to look at. So all of it was right there. They can just make the connections themselves.
And you actually got a little kudos from your instructor as well. She said it was one of the best ways of illustrating your research process. So that was good. Okay, thanks. All right. And then there was one other thing I wanted to share. So Vinod, why don't you come up here real quick and talk about what you discovered when you came up to University Park. So Vinod was at Lehigh Valley for 2 semesters, and then he came up to University Park, and Karen found this on her phone one day. So why don't you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so this semester I'm taking mammalian physiology, and we use a book by Dr. Silverthorne. And the first 6 chapters are required for the students to read on their own. It's not taught in class. So when I was studying for the first exam, I was just paging through the first chapter, and they had a whole section on concept maps, like what you should do, how you should think about the topics. And throughout the entire textbook, there are concept maps for each topic. And they even have end of chapter questions that are concept map based. So I obviously took pictures and I sent it to Dr. Cackley because I knew she was working on this, so I thought she'd appreciate that.
So, it's obviously a tool that's being used, and it's helped our students immensely. Okay, so now we're going to play. So if you have a device, please go to www.lucidchart.com, and on the main page, I think there might be a pop-up box. If a pop-up box shows up, just close out of it. You want to go to this Try It Now. Okay. Now, there's going to be two different views. This will be the web-based view. So those of you who are on a laptop, there's a couple of you. This would be your web-based view. Okay. So there's your canvas or your workspace, a column of shapes. But if you're on the iPad, it's going to look a little bit different. I think there's a pop-up box that comes up, so just close out of that, and it's just going to be a white space. Okay, so I'm just going to toggle back one quick minute. On the web-based version, are you able to get in? Are you on the web page? Are you on the web page? Because I know the wireless isn't always great. On the web-based version, all you have to do is click with your mouse, drag a shape over onto the white space, and you'll just see it show up. Any of you do that? Okay, so it's a simple drag and drop. What? Oh, LucidChart.com. LUCID chart.com. Okay? And then on the iPad version, what you have to do on the iPad version is you have to select the little shape icon that's up on the top black taskbar. It'll open up this little panel of shapes, and again, all you have to do is, with your finger, you can press lightly and move it over, or just tap it and it'll put it right in the middle. So those of you on an iPad, were you able to do that? Okay? And just tapping again on the shape will bring up your little text editor that I have over here. And then you can just type in, I think, what did I put? I don't know what I wrote. Test. Okay. It's hard to see, yeah. I think I just did that to illustrate that you would bring it up. Now, if you put two shapes on your white space, and I'll do the iPad instructions first, and then I'll tell you what to do on the computer-based. The little crayon or pen button, if you select that, a blue bar will appear on the top. And all you have to do is take your finger and draw a line between the two shapes, and then hit done back up at the top, and it'll automatically make that. Oh, it didn't do that. Sorry. I guess I didn't add that picture. It'll automatically set that arrow. Anybody able to do that? Yeah? Okay, good. Now, with the web-based version, lines. I have to remember how to do this. Were you able to just drag it? Yeah.
Just drag it.
I use so many of these different ones that I forget myself. But yeah, it's a simple drag and drop. It's actually easier on the web-based version. You have to kind of play with it a little bit on the iPad version. So those are the basic things that you need to know. You can change the colors. There's there's a line color change. There's a fill color change that's on the top taskbar. And then on the iPad, the same thing. There's you can see the line fill and the color fill. So we're not going to have too much time to really get into a lot of fancy stuff. But what I wanted us to do, should we do a collaborative thing, or should we have them work individually?
I think maybe just work individually.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to collaborate.
I would like to be able to show you how it works collaboratively. But maybe what we'll do is we could all go into the same URL after you play with this a little bit. What we thought we would have you do, this was Karen's first thought when we thought we had to do something a little collaborative here, was make a couple of shapes and arrows to show the process by which you're going to attack the snack bar out here when we leave. Everybody knows they have this wonderful little array of goodies out there, and are you going to go get a drink first? Are you going to go get a little a little piece of fruit first? You're going to go hit the ice cream first? Just come up with a little plan using these little shapes. They're called nodes in concept maps. So a node for each item, and then an arrow that shows you're going to do the first node first, and the second node, and then the third node, and maybe the ice cream we're going to put sprinkles and a cherry on it, and those can radiate out of like if that was my ice cream, I could put a cherry and coming out of the same shape. So why don't you just give a try with that a little bit? I'll give you about 5 minutes. How's that? Oh, we could plug it in. We could plug one in. We do have the connectors here. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for the students.
Okay.
Did you find it easier to sort of preconceive or to draw out your mind map before you did it with the computer version?
Well, usually I would just kind of go along with it. I find it easier for me to just talk it out with the class, because they would ask me a question and it would usually be what step is next in the process and where does this go? Because when you go through, let's say, cell respiration, it's this part, this part, this part. But then where do you get the stuff for the second part? Where do you get the stuff from the first part? So it's easier to say, okay, let's draw it out. And I'll open up LucidChart on my computer, project it, and then actually go through it with them and ask them questions to guide them, okay, this is how I would connect it. And by the time I finish mapping it out, they have the full thing there. And usually it will be like, can you send that to us? Because then they can use it to make their own map that then they would hand in.
We did have a student who made a comment that they sketched it out on paper before that was one of the comments that we received. I personally use concept mapping when I had, just recently I read an article that was heavy in history of adult learning theory, and my brain just went, yeah, okay, I can't remember all of this stuff, and I just outlined the whole article in a concept map, just like throwing it all in there, and then I later kind of played with what everything was and how a way to organize it. So it really depends on the person. Anybody else?
I've let students just turn them in on paper if they, some people, it's funny, they do better working on a computer because the computer allows you to erase things and you end up with a nice clean map. And if they're doing it on paper and it's harder for them to revise it. But there's some of them, they're like, I just can't do it on a computer. I'm like, fine, just turn it in on paper, I don't care. But at least I know that they're working with it and they're putting those concepts together.
Is the collaboration function synchronous, asynchronous, or both?
Both. So in other words, the students in the collaborative classroom can be collaborating all at the same time. They all have the same screen up. They can be adding shapes, or making changes on the document at one time. And then actually the way that I found out about this was I was taking an online course and we had a group project where we used this. So of course we were all over the country. So we were working on it asynchronously and synchronously, because there is, oh, it doesn't show up on this one. I think I cut it off. But actually there's a chat feature and there's a comment section. So similar to Google Docs, you can leave comments for for the other students that are working with you. So I found this really, really, it's pretty robust. Yeah.
I have actually two questions. The first one, does this have a syntax version? I mean, like anything that you have that goes to database, because that will have.
I think this works with. Are you talking about like
like putting everything in a written format, like a sentence format?
Oh, okay,
The
inspiration.
students can create sentences, then it just converts to the map automatically.
Inspiration allows you to do an outline, and then it automatically converts it to a concept map and vice versa. That's inspiration software, but that, of course, is a licensed software product. I don't think this one does.
The second one, why not Visio to use this one? Because Visio comes with Office program, which is already like all Penn State computers has it. So why is this instead of Visio?
It was a tool that I learned about. I found Visio a little snaggy. It was just me. And I found, I saw a group collaboration work in this. We just thought we would give it a try, and it worked. It is free. So, we were able to establish an education account. And, support, I've gotten support, back and forth with the support people. So it just worked. I guess that's really the only reason. You could use CMAP for that matter, or Visio, exactly.
This does work with tablets and other devices though, whereas Visio is.
Oh. Well, it's a little bit, as you can see, it's just a little bit different, working on the devices, but you do have the capability of doing it. And when we were working with it first, that was a year ago, right? A year ago. It seemed to work better in Chrome, but now it seems like we don't have any problem with any of the browsers, so. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Does it have a capability to save animation, like a building process for the map, or just the final product?
I haven't really explored all the ins and outs. I mean, there's quite a bit of capability in that with UI interfaces and things like that for software development. So I just haven't explored all that it has to offer. Okay. All right. So let me go one step. Okay. So if you'd like to, you can just go to this tiny URL, and I'll leave it up for a minute, and you'll see that I created a little, and it was just in the free version, so that if you wanted to try this, you can actually use the free version, that little try it, to really, attempt to collaborate with somebody else without having to sign up for it or anything like that. So it's tinyurl TLT 2013 LC. And let me escape out of here. And up. And have it hyperlinked. Oh, it's not going. Did anybody bring it up? It must have. I have it open at home, believe it or not, and I kept going back into it because it's the free version. I couldn't save it. So I guess maybe my husband turned my computer off. He gets mad at me because I leave my computer on all the time. But anyway, you can collaborate and.
That wasn't the same address you typed in.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
So was anybody able to get to that?
Go back to the end.
Go back to that.
I just turned it off.
Go. You're gonna have a long way to go. It's hard to see when you're up here.
Right there.
That's not what you typed in.
Is that not what I typed in?
That's not what you typed in.
Are you getting it in?
To some, it's really slow, but
That's what I typed in, and it says Safari can't open the page.
no, I'm in the Lucid.
You're in the LucidChart. Do you see a little
but
chart?
It's still loading.
It's still loading. Yeah, it's our wireless. Thank goodness you were able to go into the free, be able to at least do a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in it.
Okay. Does it show 3 different shapes?
It shows me 3 shapes on the top, and then somebody's been doing something on the bottom.
Yeah, it's probably stuff I left on the bottom. So if there were 2 or 3 people in there, you would be able to add something to it, and they would see it. Then just a couple seconds later. So I think what I put in there was how to access it on an iPad. Okay. So I just wanted to go over a couple of apps that you can do concept mapping with. Inspiration Lite. Inspiration is a software program that a lot of schools use. Actually, we have it on our Mac builds for the camp for Penn State, and it's considered an accessibility software, or it was listed under like the categories of apps. Of software applications a while back under accessibility. So there is an iPad app for it, and you can see Karen made her little map of what she's going to do when she gets out to the snack bar. And it's went the wrong way. Okay. There's another one that's really very easy to use. It's Poplet Lite. And now these are single. You can't do group collaboration with these because the full versions obviously give you all those capabilities. But we were really looking at what was available for free. So Poplet Lite, and of course that allows you to draw in the node. And then on the Android side, we don't want to forget the Android. Mind Maps Lite, and this is an example that I was able to get of Mind Maps Lite. And then on my slide, and I don't know, are we posting these somewhere? Are we posting our slides somewhere? you know, we can make them available, but there's a top 5 Android apps for concept and mind mapping. And I think that's it. Would anybody like to share what they did, what they made, you know, their little, if they made a little map? Because we could hook it into the computer here, if you would like. No. Yep. And, yeah, we're all done. So do you have anything else to say?
I'm just,
And if anybody has any questions? Nope. Well, thank you so much.
thank you. They said to just leave that in the. Okay. The fastest way to the snack bar is this door. I've already mapped that out. Straight out here. Dean will be going for the cookies. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I can certainly mail it to you. I just thought maybe we were posted somewhere. I wasn't really sure what we were supposed to do with that.
Website and drop mine up there and share the URL.
Oh, that's what I should.
Okay.
Oh, well.
I'm psychology.
You're saying, now, you weren't,
I was biology.
okay, so this